A highly anticipated summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin has ended. No ceasefire announced, but both called the meeting productive. Now Trump places the onus on Ukrainian President Zelensky to end the war.
Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit. But it's up to President Zelensky. I think we are, and if they'd like, I'll be at that next meeting. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelensky and President Putin.
While Trump wants Ukraine to compromise, his argument is clear. Russia is a major power and Ukraine is not. While he praises Ukrainian soldiers, he says that they can't match Russia's strength. Speaking to Fox News after his meeting with Putin, Trump also revealed plans to arrange a summit between Putin and Zelensky.
I mean, they both want me there, and I'll be there. You got to see it out. And it is a big day. I think either way it's a big day, but if we get this solved, it's a really big day because we're going to save a lot of lives.
Well, President Zelensky has expressed support for Trump's proposal of a trilateral meeting. He said that key issues should be addressed directly by the leaders and believes a three-way format is well suited for such high-level talks. However, Putin made no mention of meeting Zelensky while speaking to reporters after his meeting with Trump. He called on Ukraine and its European allies to accept the US-Russia agreement and avoid disrupting the progress. Well, Putin also repeated that Russia's root causes must be addressed for lasting peace. And this was the first meeting between Putin and a US president since the war began. And to discuss more, we are now being joined by Dr. Gilbert Doctorow from Berlin. He's an international affairs analyst, author and historian. Thank you so much, Dr. Doctorow, for joining us on the broadcast. So let me start off by saying that analysts have largely believed that Trump hasn't gained anything from the summit. In fact, some have even gone as far as to say that we may be farther away from peace than we were at the beginning of the day. Now, having said that, what happened in Anchorage does feel slightly anticlimactic. What we saw was a great show of bonhomie between the two leaders, but what we did not saw was a breakthrough. Now, I'm just curious to know what's your assessment of the situation that's developed.
I think it was a very good outcome to the summit. Neither Trump was humiliated, nor was Putin humiliated. It was entirely possible to foresee such an outcome as they went into this meeting. The American side, Western media, were all saying that Mr. Trump has to watch out for the very wily Mr. Putin, who has a lot of experience manipulating people, who comes out of his early training as a Russian security officer. The other side of the story is that the Americans had set up a lot to which could be interpreted in advance of the summit as intended to entrap Mr. Putin. After all, they sent their Secretary of Commerce to the meeting, suggesting blandishments that if Mr. Putin agrees to the demand of Mr. Trump, that he signed on to an unconditional ceasefire at once, then there'd be immediate progress on rapprochement and commercial and all other dimensions between Russia and the United States. On the other hand, if Mr. Putin refused to cooperate, he was being threatened with these harsh secondary sanctions, which already have been imposed on India. The point is that one looking at it from one side or another, there was the possibility of envisioning a disastrous conclusion to this summit, that one of the parties would be humiliated and they would go away and cause a lot of trouble. That didn't happen. On the contrary, and I differ with your overall generalization that this takes us farther from peace. I think it takes us a lot closer to peace. When Mr. Trump said that he will not take any decisions on imposing sanctions on Russia for at least 2 or 3 weeks, well, what does that 2 or 3 weeks stand for? It stands for the time that he is giving Ukraine and its Western supporters in Europe time to make public pronouncements about the future peace, the future negotiations. And that we may well expect that those announcements will be so negative that Mr. Trump will be fully justified in saying, gentlemen, do it yourselves without us. we leave the war. And if the United States indeed leaves the war, then Ukraine will collapse in a matter of weeks.
Absolutely, Dr. Doktorov. And I don't think either side could have taken that risk for the conversations to go foul. And having said that, Trump is now saying that the ball is in Ukraine's court. In his Fox News interview, he has mentioned land swaps and even prisoner exchanges as part of moving forward. But he keeps emphasizing that now it's up to Zelensky to get a deal done with European involvement, of course. Now, he's also hinted that there is going to be a trilateral very soon with European involvement. What's your read on this?
It won't happen. The Europeans have already drawn a line in the sand. They have said, and they are telling this to Zelensky and to the world at large, that there can be no exchange of territories, which is what Mr. Trump used as a term, a euphemism, for Ukraine's giving up once and for all the occupied territories that Russia holds today. The Europeans are unlikely to change their stance in the next 2 to 3 weeks, which means that they will be troublemakers, that they will be putting a wrench in the works, as Mr. Putin suggested might happen. And if that takes place, if they continue to promote the war's continuation by supporting Mr. Zelensky in refusal to sacrifice territory, then Mr. Trump, in 2 or 3 weeks, as I say, will be fully justified in saying, do it yourselves without us, knowing what that means. It means the total collapse of Ukraine, and maybe not in a weeks, but in a few months, after having lost U.S. military equipment and, most importantly, U.S. military intelligence from the skies.
Absolutely. Those are some of the plausible outcomes. But we now have the first reaction from the Ukrainian president since Trump and Putin's talks in Alaska. And President Zelensky has said that he has had a long and substantive conversation with President Trump. It was the first one-on-one and then with European leaders. He has also stressed the importance of European leaders being present to ensure reliable security guarantees together with America. Now, what's the subtext here and how does it set the tone for the next meeting?
The very idea of there being European guarantors of the peace on the ground in Ukraine is a red line for the Russians. And if they proceed with that line, then the talks will not take place. The Russians will not see the equivalent of NATO installed in Ukraine in perpetuity. They have said they want no foreign troops and no foreign military installations in Ukraine as a condition for peace. For this reason, I say the meeting is between the three parties is unlikely to take place if the Europeans and the Ukrainians persist in that line of security guarantees, meaning Western troops on the ground. It's not feasible.
Absolutely. Of course, Dr. Doktorov, we'll have to wait and see how the situation develops and how the parties involved are going to navigate these red lines. But for now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you for having me.